Yes, a little magic from our studios. This is David Krayden. You're watching Stand on Guard. I'm coming at you live from the nation's capital in Ottawa. And when I come back, what that little Mark Carney's montage was all about.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station and subscribe. We're heading towards our objective of 50,000. We can get there within a week if you continue to subscribe at the rate you were yesterday. Thank you so much for the support. It's very much appreciated. We're going to move forward. We've been under suppression from day one. It's been 3 years, by the way, 3 years since I've been operating on YouTube, and it's been a hell of a good time. And it's been so nice to share the news with you on a daily basis. Well, we started out, I think, once or twice a week, and now we're daily, sometimes twice. And we're going to keep moving forward because these are trying times. And before I forget, before I get into my brief monologue, I want to show you the new stickers. These are just out. You can get them in the store. I'll be advertising the store later. But this is what we've got here. And pot, just say no. So you're asking, what's that about? I'm going to show you the longer version of that right now. Because Mark Carney, of course, was, shall we say, filtering the money, the profits of Brookfield Asset Management through Bermuda, and particularly through a bicycle store in Bermuda. You can't make this up. This is like something out of a James Bond film. But here's a longer version of that.
Judy Trins, CTV News. Good morning, Mr. Carney. You were at the helm of a company that quite clearly registered much of its business in Bermuda to avoid paying taxes, including, as CTV News reported, registered to an address of a bike shop in Bermuda. You have said that this is the way the world works.
Teachers, retirees, municipal employees, they pay the taxes on their pension. That's the design. The follow-up is how do I know? I understand how the world works.
And that in the case of pension funds, that leaves more money for pensioners. But in this case, it looks like just plain tax avoidance.
Now, we've been talking a lot about how Mark Carney's in the pocket of communist China. We've been talking a lot about how Mark Carney is a Marxist-Leninist. By his own admission, he admires Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin more than anybody else. He admires the basic dictatorship of China, just like Justin Trudeau. But, I used to poke fun at the conservatives for always saying Beijing, Beijing, Beijing instead of China. I think, what is somebody going to accuse you of being racist for saying China? Well, we have to do that because, believe me, it's like China is a forbidden word. And if you say China, immediately people are after you. So, yeah, I have to say Beijing in the description and stuff like this. And it's become necessary. Before we get into Paul Chiang's replacements, you're going to love this. Peter YUEN in Markville, Unionville, this riding just outside of Toronto. Of course, Paul Chiang had to resign because he encouraged locals to go abduct his conservative opponent, bring him to the Chinese consulate, and pick up your $183,000 Canadian bounty. So what's his replacement like? Well, we'll find out in a minute. This is just too funny. But what else? What else is Mark Carney up to? Well, he has a brother, Sean Carney. No, that's not Sean Connery. It's Sean Carney. There he is there. There's the boy. And Sean Carney Well, there he is sitting behind Mark Carney when Mark Carney was invested as the prime minister, or sworn in as the prime minister. And guess what Sean Carney is up to? Well, he's the COO, Chief Operating Officer, at Prince William and Princess Kate's estate. So he's very thick with King Charles III. And have a look, have a look at this. Incredible. So thank you to Martin Harriman, who looked this up last night. And he mentions that Sean Carney has been with Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, the usual suspects. But what makes this guy a little bit different? A little bit different. Yeah, he's the COO of Kensington Palace. So he is linked in more than you or I are on that on the website or the app. He's truly linked in with British royalty. And I was always as pro-monarchy as you get. I had a Queen's Commission in the Royal Canadian Air Force. I met the Queen in 1994 when she visited my air base, 19 Wing Comox. I was very proud to meet her. Always been a pro-monarchy. But the monarchy is slipping so far into politics, woke politics, that I'm beginning to wonder. I'm beginning to question my convictions. And when it surrounds itself with woke ideologues like Mark Carney, and I'm sure his brother reflects Mark Carney's same progressive values, I begin to wonder if I haven't made a horrible mistake in whom I'm backing. And I've had people on this program who are outright critics of the monarchy. And usually I would have said, hold it, don't you dare. I've let them talk because I think we need to discuss this in the light of where the monarchy is going under King Charles III, and more it might go under Prince William. Because King Charles is one of the most woke monarchs. Well, he is the most woke monarch in British history. Monarchs weren't woke. Sometimes there were Nazi sympathizers, like Edward VIII, but they weren't exactly as woke as they are today. They've had problems in the past, yes. Some of them were tyrants, like King Henry VIII. Some of them were absolutely bloodthirsty. But the scourge of wokeness is certainly a current phenomena, and it's affected King Charles III. I don't know how much affected his mother. She said very little about politics. But watch this. If you think I'm exaggerating, about the link between Mark Carney and the royal family, and how this could be another example of Mark Carney going off the rails for globalism. King Charles III is a globalist going off the rails for progressive woke ideology. I don't think so.
That by 2025, the global 100 companies, including many more from China and India, will have raised the bar to be 100% sustainable and zero carbon. On that note, it is truly an honor to introduce our special guest today. Not just because as Knights, he clearly occupies a unique spot at this roundtable, but because his life's work has been dedicated to reconciling the kingdom of humans with the majesty of nature, underlining the practical importance of honest metrics and capital flows. He's been the North Star for sustainable capitalism, and as our civilization has evolved, he has become more of a center of gravity.
With present and future generations in mind, together with all life on this precious planet that we share, there is simply, I'm afraid, no time to waste. Thank you very much indeed, Toby. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness, for a generous and urgent introduction to our session today. It's been a great privilege to have you with us. My name is Diana Fox Carney, and it is my privilege to be moderating the session today. And the next person I'd like to bring in is Sanda Ojiambo, who is Executive Director of the UN Global Compact.
Okay, do we need
zero carbon?
Sorry,
On that note,
I have done it again here. But do we need a truck to hit us before we realize?
To bring in is Sanda Ojiambo.
Do we need a truck to hit us? I'll say it again. Before people realize that all of these people are intertwined. This is Mark Carney's wife. She is agitating on behalf of globalism. Diana Fox Carney, she's agitating on behalf of globalism. They are all in it today. And you remember the photographs. Diana Fox Carney at the event at her farm, and her sisters. Her sister is very, very close, was very, very close before she went to jail, was very, very close to Ghislaine Maxwell. And of course, her name was included in Jeffrey Epstein's contact book. And all of these people, and of course, Prince Andrew has been implicated in this whole mess, this sordid mess with Epstein Island, and all of that, and all of the SA activity that's been going on at that island. So, what do we require to understand that Mark Carney is not a real Canadian? He is a European. He couldn't decide whether he was Irish, UK, or Canadian at one point. He had 3 passports. He's not on your side. He's not going to make Canada strong. He's not in favor of Canada first. He's a China strong, China first candidate. Globalism above all. Globalism uber alles. That is Mark Carney. That's what Mark Carney is fighting for. Now just watch the end.
Who is Executive Director of the UN Global Compact.
Prime Minister of Canada, Your Majesty.
Your Majesty. Very good to see you. Lovely to see you. Congratulations.
Very much. I've had a disaster today, sir. My border of Canada pin broke.
No.
Yes, it fell on the tarmac at that, which is true. With our founding peoples, the British.
Draw a line.
I'm out of that rank.
Well, anyway, it's a great treat to.
It's lovely. There's much to catch up on.
Come and have a seat. No, I know these things are rather important.
No, they are important.
They're a pretty cozy environment, pretty cozy relationship between King Charles III and our Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Do you really want this man to be your Prime Minister for 4 years? I know. Most of you watching, no, absolutely not. The problem is, and I've had this confirmed now, is that people are not seeing these broadcasts. The same 200,000 people are watching the YouTube broadcast where we're exposing Mark Carney. Not just me. I applaud the work of others who are doing the same thing, exposing Mark Carney as the globalist he is and as being so deep in China's pocket as he is. But people are not seeing this. And this is absolutely outrageous. Now, Sam Cooper has done a tremendous investigative report on Paul Chang's replacement, Peter YUEN. Who is he? Retired Toronto police executive. He was deputy chief of police. He was flagged in Canada's election interference inquiry, and he's replacing Paul Chang. Wow. Here's Sam Cooper in the Bureau. I encourage you to read Sam. He's been on the show a couple of times. He's always welcome. One of the hardest working investigative reporters in this country who actually investigates material that you can use. Retired Toronto Police Deputy Chief Peter YUEN, who joined the board last year of a Chinese international school in Markham, was flagged in testimony on foreign interference in a neighboring riding in 2019. And he's been named the new Liberal candidate in Markham Unionville. So he's now, the appointment places YUEN, and he's now a central figure in Prime Minister Mark Carney's campaign. At the center of a riding already under scrutiny in Canada's evolving foreign influence investigation. This is exactly what I said last week. And if you watch me on Redacted, I said it there too. Why would you want a guy running in a riding that's already been suspect for foreign interference? CSIS has already revealed through a whistleblower that China helped buy 2 elections for Justin Trudeau, that they're heavily involved in the Greater Toronto Area, targeting MPs, largely Liberal. So you defend Paul Chang. Mark Carney defended Paul Chang until Paul Chang said, I have to pull the plug. It's just too much. So who replaces Paul Chang? Peter YUEN, who's in the same boat. This is incredible. But this is the way our country is being run right now. So, anyway, before I want to quickly touch on this before I get on to our next subject matter. And then actually, let me play this for you first. So here's where we are, folks. Yeah, I didn't want to forget to play that. Here's where we are, folks, with this riding, Markinville, Unionville. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. We've got the same problem we had last week. Now, I want to touch on David Coletto's recent remarks because the polls are not good. And people tell me, well, they're all askew, they're all inaccurate. Some people are even suggesting they're not taking the results from BC. Well, if they were taking the results from BC, it would be worse, but I don't believe that. But the results in BC are just as bad as they are across the country. But David Coletto of Abacus Polling points out again what I have been saying. Stop making the election about Donald Trump, Pierre Poilievre. Make it about change, change, change. This is what I said yesterday. I'll say it again today. He needs to focus on the need for change. And if he can do that, he can translate Canada's and Canadians' desire for change into increased poll numbers and election victory on April 28th. It's not too late, but Pierre Poilievre has nothing to lose. And yes, I know he's attracting huge crowds. I know the enthusiasm level is 3 times what it is for Mark Carney. I understand he's actually outlining policy. Days later, Mark Carney copies it, or at least pieces of it. But so far, it's not getting into the national polling, and it has to. And I think this is incredibly important. Fragmentation isn't a threat, it's an opportunity. The same. Yeah. You can't assume that showing up in a newspaper or the evening news is enough. And this is why Pierre Poilievre needs to get on podcasts like this one. You don't want to go on my show, go on somebody else's. Patrick Bet-David has invited Pierre Poilievre to be on his show twice. Poilievre's people, the idiots running the communication strategy, have hung up on 2 occasions. Now that is completely unacceptable. I want to play this because thank God we have to continue to not only outline that Mark Carney does not represent change. Mark Carney does not represent change of any kind. He's continuity. He's the continuation of bad liberal policies. And he has so much baggage that nobody wants to talk about except very few reporters in the mainstream media and all of us in the independent new media. But listen to this report here.
Corporate tax evasion continues to follow Liberal leader Mark Carney on his campaign. Today, the NDP is alleging that Brookfield Asset Management avoided paying billions in taxes during the time Carney sat on the board. CTV's Judy Trinh is traveling with the Liberals. What's his response to the allegations, Judy?
Heather, Mark Carney continues to sidestep questions about his past job at Brookfield Asset Management and the use of tax havens. While in Montreal, Mark Carney was asked if it was ethical for Brookfield Asset Management, where he sat on the board, to use tax havens.
First off, I'm no longer at Brookfield. Secondly, this follows their arrangements follow the rules, including the tax rules of this country.
Carney resigned from Brookfield's board in mid-January to run as leader of the Liberals. Before that, he was head of impact investment for Brookfield, managing 2 green funds worth about $25 billion. CTV News reported that several entities of Brookfield's core business was registered to an address in Bermuda that also houses a bike shop.
Mark Carney, while he was the chair of this company, 4 out of 5 of their businesses were located above a bicycle shop in a small office in Bermuda. It almost sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud.
Referring to public documents, Singh says Brookfield, during Carney's tenure, avoided paying more than $5 billion in taxes.
$5.3 billion. What does that mean? Well, that's 50,000 nurses that could have been hired. That's streetcars, that's buses, that's public infrastructure, not only for the federal government, also for the provincial government.
For years, the Liberal Party has promised to make corporations pay their fair share. Carney said his global banking experience will help him find solutions.
I understand how the world works and the structure works.
But when asked when the Liberals will release policy to tighten corporate loopholes, Carney did not provide a timeline.
It's absolutely a priority of my government. If we are re-elected, it'll be a priority of our government to ensure that our companies are paying their fair share of taxes.
While Conservative leader Pierre has also criticized Carney's actions at Brookfield, the Conservatives, like the Liberals, have not put forward a policy on how to tighten loopholes related to tax havens. Heather.
CTV's Judy Trinh reporting. Thank you.
Don't expect any comment from Mark Carney about how he's going to tighten these loopholes. And once again, I think corporate taxes should be low. I don't even approve of income tax. I think it's ultimately nothing more than the government putting a gun to your head and taking the money. What I really object to, though, is two-tiered justice and two-tiered taxation, where people like Mark Carney can avoid paying their taxes, where people like Mark Carney can head up billion-dollar corporations and thumb their nose at the rest of Canadians who have to pay their taxes. They get away with it because they're special, because they're elite, because they know the right people, and because they think and they know they can get away with breaking the rules and ultimately breaking the law. But that's okay. They get away with it. What happens to other people who break the law? Well, they're tried. They're arrested, they're charged, and they're put on trial. Just look what happened last week. We had a verdict in the Tamara Leach, Chris Barber trial. That's what happens to Canadians who protest. Canadians who are rich and powerful and bankers, they can pretty well do whatever they please with immunity. And that's the lesson that Mark Carney is teaching us all. And Mark Carney can stand up there and has the gall to say, hey, this is how the world works, man. And I understand how the world works. And I'm going to keep doing this because I know more than you. I have friends in high places. I've always been an elitist. I can always do what I want to do. I can get away with it because I'm special. I'm Mark Carney. Do we want that kind of man as a prime minister? No. Listen to Mark Carney go on about how he's got everybody in his pocket.
The Americans in the pocketbook, we have retaliatory tariffs on them. We just hit them again in the auto sector. We're fighting them on Fox News, which is what they understand. We're sending Doug Ford onto Fox News to show them that we're not messing around up here. And we're going to send Danielle next. Maybe we won't send her. We're going to send Danielle. No, maybe we won't. We won't send Danielle. We're going to keep her. No, keep her. No, it's a bad idea. Forget. Strike that. Strike that. Just ignore that back there. So we.
I mean, this. How shall we put it? This objectionable politician has the gall to say he controls Doug Ford. He's going to tell Doug Ford what to do. And I think he does control Doug Ford. That's the sad part. Doug Ford is in Mark Carney's pocket as much as he was in Justin Trudeau's pocket. He's in the bag for Justin Trudeau. But he slips up and he says, oh, we'll send Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith isn't playing ball with Mark Carney. Danielle Smith is insisting that Mark Carney respect provincial autonomy over natural resources, namely Alberta's right to sell its natural gas and oil and not have the federal government use it as a bargaining chip, as a punishment on Donald Trump. The federal government has no right to control provincial mineral rights. Danielle Smith is right. And of course, that's why Carney says, oh, no, I shouldn't have said that. We can't send Danielle. She's not on the same page as I am, and that we are. She's actually putting Canada first, not China first. So that to me is the height of Mark Carney's incredible hypocrisy. And get this amazes me. After he's reached this understanding with Donald Trump, whatever the hell is the basis of that understanding, it's not quite clear. It's got something to do with Brookfield bailing out Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner's high-rise apartment complex in New York City. It's not clear, though, exactly what Carney got and what Trump got, but there's a very cozy relationship there. But Carney continues to play the Trump card with immunity because he knows Trump is going to call him Prime Minister Mark Carney.
Trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over. Our old relationship of steadily deepening integration with the United States is over. The 80-year period when the United States embraced the mantle of global economic leadership, when it forged alliances rooted in trust and mutual respect, and championed the free and open exchange of goods and services, is over.
I'm looking forward to the day when we can say Mark Carney's campaign is over and he lost. But here's the irony, and I'll say it again in case you missed it. Donald Trump originally threatened to slap tariffs on Canada for what 2 reasons? You recall? I know, it's 4 months now. Border security and the flow of fentanyl across the U.S. border from Canada. All right, so the Liberal government did virtually nothing for border security. It was all cosmetic. It was a Band-Aid. They had a $1.3 billion plan, but all of that money, virtually all of that money, is being spent in the future, not now. And they have no intention of stopping fentanyl from entering the Vancouver ports. And if you want to know more about this, have a look at The Bureau by Sam Wood. He's talked about this extensively, how fentanyl is coming into the Vancouver ports in mass quantities. Do you think Mark Carney is going to stop that flow of fentanyl when he is so tight with China, when he is so in China's pocket that he's appointed another Liberal nominee in Markham Unionville who is again attached to China? Do you think Mark Carney is going to stop the flow of fentanyl? Do you think he's going to tell China, stop sending fentanyl? No, he won't. And Mark Carney said recently to his advisors, fentanyl is not a problem in Canada. It's not a crisis. It's a problem in the United States, but not in Canada. Thank God, Pierre Poilievre, and this is one of the reasons I really like what Poilievre says about social issues. He understands the drug issue. He understands that so-called supervised injection sites, he calls them drug consumption sites, aren't effective in stopping addiction or stopping drug use or even saving lives. They perpetuate addiction, they perpetuate drug use, and they actually increase the number of people dying from heroin and opioid overdoses. And BC is the kingdom of opioid overdoses thanks to a woke, crazy NDP government that has done everything possible to poison its province with lethal, deadly, poisonous drugs. Let's listen to Poilievre. I love what he says here.
Yet, despite the obvious death and despair, sadly, the Liberals refuse to change. Mark Carney recently told a group of Liberal supporters that fentanyl is not a crisis in Canada, just in the United States. It's hard to believe how anyone could be so out of touch. And he can't be trusted to change course. In fact, he doesn't want to. He's doubled down and recruited candidates who are even too radical for Justin Trudeau. For example, his handpicked candidate said, and I quote, Liberals would be smart to lean into drug decriminalization. And another said, legalizing all drugs would be good for Canada. Carney's star Liberal candidate in Vancouver is Gregor Robertson, an early advocate of drug decriminalization and unsafe government-funded supply. He wrote to a House of Commons committee studying the issue of drug dens, these consumption sites, and he said that local community opposition should be ignored. I'm going to quote him here. Factors such as the impact of the site on crime rates and expressions of community support or opposition should not be relevant to the federal government's approval process. I want you to digest that statement for a moment. Factors such as the impact of the site on crime rates and expressions of community support or opposition should not be relevant to the federal government's approval process.
How many times have you heard so-called experts talk about the science of supervised injection sites? How it's scientifically proven that they save lives. Poilievre is actually pointing out that that's a lie. That's a fallacy. It's a complete fabrication. And these damn consumption sites, these drug dens, as Poilievre correctly calls them, have proliferated across Canada. It all began in Vancouver. And I don't know if you've ever visited that drug consumption site in Vancouver, the first one. It's surrounded by filth, by drug paraphernalia, by addicts passed out on the ground, by people defecating and urinating. It is a catastrophe. And that's what Liberal policy has brought. Very little of that changed under Stephen Harper. Pierre Poilievre has made a point, an issue out of saying, not under my watch, I'm going to get rid of these damn drug dens so people can stop using them as an excuse to perpetuate drug use. There's no safe amount of heroin or opioids. Yeah, you can drink your whole life and not kill yourself. But you can die the first time you take heroin or an opioid. It's lethal. There's no safe measure. It's not ever safe to inject heroin into your veins because you could be dead. Pierre Poilievre is the only politician, I think, besides Max Bernier, who understands this and has the guts, the balls to stand up and make that case. And I am sick of Liberals like Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau hiding behind their drug dens and their drug addiction perpetuation sites, whatever you want to call them. They're not safe, and all they are is supervised, but it's not safe. Let's listen to the rest of
drug
Poilievre.
Consumption sites. So this Liberal candidate who's running today, newly recruited by Mark Carney, says that even if drug dens jack up crime rates in a given community, they should be able to go ahead. This is a federal decision under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. And the Liberal team want more of these. Liberals want more of these drug dens in every single community in our country. No wonder that when Gregor Robertson was mayor of Vancouver, overdoses increased by 600%. For 3 terms in government, the Liberal Party has caused the addiction crisis to spiral out of control. The question in this election is, can we afford a 4th Liberal term of rising crime, drugs, and chaos? Or is it time for a new Conservative government to stop the drugs, treat addiction, and bring our loved ones home drug-free for a change? We need a new Conservative government that can reverse this radical experiment and move the country towards hope and change. And that's why I'm here today. I'm here today to announce that a new Conservative government will fund recovery for 50,000 Canadians who need it. To fund this program, we will end federal funding for opioids, defund the drug dens, sue the opioid manufacturers and consulting companies who created this crisis. We will eliminate back-office bureaucracy, and we will fund directly those people who need the help through groups that have success in delivering drug-free outcomes. And make no mistake, we will be shutting down drug dens. We will ban drug dens within 500 meters of schools, hospitals, daycares, playgrounds, and other places where the community is vulnerable. We will, let's be clear, these drug consumption sites do not work. And I'm going to quote the Lancet Commission study on this right now. There is no evidence that accessing a site lowers an individual's risk of fatal overdose over time, or that sites lower community overdose rates. We owe it to our fellow citizens who are still struggling with addiction to offer them a real chance to avoid adding to that terrible number of losses we've had already.
So Poilievre is actually offering a way out. He's offering treatment. This is good news. This is good news for addicts. Consumption sites are bad news for addicts. They're bad news for Canadians. And I have to say, thank God somebody is saying this. And it's amazing how this part of the episode has been stomped on by suppression. We've seen the numbers go up and they get pushed down again because people, you're not allowed to say this. Because the narrative, the official woke liberal narrative is that these injection sites work. That's a lie. I'll be back in a minute with my concluding remarks. Thank you for watching today. And please visit the store, have a look. And I say again, please send me your pictures of you with the gear you purchased, whether it's a sweatshirt or a ball cap or mug. I'll be happy to post it on the next show. Thank you for watching. I'm trying to give you all the news you need to know. Let's continue to resolve to resist. And until tomorrow, God bless, Godspeed. And I'm David Krayden. Thank you for watching today. We'll be back again